Hi, it is Emily and Michael here. Welcome to the Deconstruction podcast Surf's Up series. Thank you for taking time to click play. Before we begin our episode today, we just want to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are recording at beautiful Broad Beach and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Let's begin. Good morning, Michael and Jono.
G'day. Hi, Em. How are you?
Good. We've got a bit of a different setup for the first episode of our Surf's Up series for the Deconstruction. So Michael and I have roped Jonathan Miliszewski, Jono, the first Helix human, onto the
First
podcast.
Helix? Wow.
Yeah.
I am privileged. What an honour.
Yeah, it's a high bar, so
Yeah. Is that because I'm the sucker that's been roped into it? No, I'm very happy to be the first Helix person. What an honour.
Thanks. And we've got a bit of we're all holding our microphones, so it feels like we're on a bit of a breakfast television show. So, Jono, if we get into it, my first bullet point for you in my notebook of...
You've come prepared.
You have come prepared. Yeah. Who are you, Jono? Do you want to introduce yourself for our audience?
Okay. How deep do we go? Who am I? I feel like it's like a real... to look within myself to find out who I am.
can we get the couch out?
Yeah. Well, let's start with I'm Jonathan. I'm a director at Helix Legal. I head up the litigation and disputes team. So I'm a construction lawyer based on the Gold Coast, which I'm sure we'll cover a lot of that this morning. But my day-to-day is helping people in the construction industry resolve disputes through mediation or adjudication or non-dispute methods. If we can resolve things without having to go through any of those processes, I advocate for that. But I help developers, contractors, subcontractors, some local governments, so a broad range of clients. We're really out there to help people find a better way of doing things in the construction industry, Queensland, Australia, and where I am on the Gold Coast.
And you moved to the coast in 97. You're a Kiwi.
I am.
Was that straight over from New Zealand?
Yeah. Like most people on the Gold Coast, well, I wasn't born here. So I moved over with my family when I was 7 years old and have lived primarily on the Gold Coast. I grew up on the Gold Coast, went to uni in Brisbane and spent some time overseas in the UK, but moved back to the Gold Coast because why wouldn't you? It's like the best lifestyle here. My family's still here, and really seen it transform. What's 97? Almost 30 years ago. So, which is just insane to think, but it just continues to grow and grow, which is awesome. Like it's a lot, creates some challenges and a lot of opportunity.
What school did you go to?
I went to Marymount down in Burleigh. Yeah, so Marymount Primary and then Marymount High School.
And how long have you been with Helix?
I think it's more than 6 years now I've been with Helix. So I finished my law degree and went over to the UK, and I worked in the UK at a law firm there. And before I was admitted as a solicitor, I was working as a law firm in the construction team in the UK, and really tossed up. There was like a sliding doors moment there where I thought whether I'd want to stay in the UK and go through the process of being qualified in England and setting up my career there. And I think ultimately my girlfriend at the time decided she wanted to come back to Queensland, and she made the decision for us, and we're now married with 2 kids. But that was back in 2017. I came back to Brisbane, went through the practical legal training I have to do, and have worked at Helix since 2018.
That's gone quickly, hasn't it?
I came to Janelle's baby, lawyer really. And
now you're director. Yeah. And we're recording our podcast, if you're listening and not watching, with the beautiful Broad Beach in the background, and you can see the waves. So there's a new office, Helix HQ at Broad Beach. Are you loving it?
It's great. It's for like many reasons. I love the office space is amazing, and guys, when you come down from Brisbane to work here, everyone seems to always be happy to see.
I'm ready to pack my bags every time.
Yeah. I think I might have convinced Jack to do 6 months down here next year. So, it's been really good. It's always been a challenge in my mind, wanting to be based down on the Gold Coast and live the lifestyle, but understanding as a corporate lawyer all the businesses in Brisbane, and it's always been a battle in my head to figure out how I would be able to make it work, and just coming to realise being in construction how much growth there is on the Gold Coast and how much construction there is, and really being able to put the case forward that we should have a Gold Coast office. It's started to make more and more sense. So from like a lifestyle perspective, it's been amazing to not have to do that commute every day of the week, and or work from home. It's actually been great to have a space. But I think also from business perspective, like there's so much opportunity on the Gold Coast and construction, and whether it's like the construction industry on the Gold Coast has always been mostly residential, and the high rises continue to go up, but the infrastructure projects at the moment as well, with obviously the light rail, and there's going to need to be more and more as population grows down here. So I think having the office made a lot of sense, and it's been fun to have this business starting to grow down in the new area.
One of the challenges I think with businesses on the Gold Coast is it's seen to be tourism-y and a great lifestyle, which it is. So I often think about the analogy that you quite often read about the Titans and the football. Some players coming here for the right reasons because they just can't get in their head that it's actually
early retirement play for the Titans.
But the Gold Coast is Australia's 6th biggest city. It's it's an economic beast in itself.
It is.
So I just think I'm sure you'll juggle very well, but that sort of a challenge to establish a great lifestyle with your family, everything like that, but still drive a business.
I think like the Gold Coast has always been tourism and construction, but I think it's becoming more diverse. Like the health centres up in the universities is huge. Like there's definitely a more diverse professional base on the Gold Coast than I think there was, at least when I was in school. So, and I think that will continue with the population. The fact that people now don't need to necessarily be working in their office, they can be whatever they want to be at a business based in Brisbane, but work down here remotely, and that like COVID changed the landscape for everybody in that sense. And that was probably the main reason for us. We were in Brisbane, living there before COVID, so that we could be close to work, and then we spent better part of 12 months working out of an apartment in Brisbane with all our family down here still. And when my wife fell pregnant, it just made sense to come back here and did the hybrid thing for a little while. But now having the office space, it feels good. Feels good to have a real centre that we can start to build from.
Well said. And you're hosting an event on the 27th of September.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us what that is. It's right behind us.
Yeah, Helix is hosting an event really to launch off the Gold Coast office officially, even though we've been here for a few months now. It's going to be at Curral Surf Club. So reaching out to people in our network to come down and have a drink and just to mingle a bit and announce ourselves as being down here, and opportunity for a beer overlooking the oceans. I'll take any opportunity for that. So
who should come? Is it open? It's open to anyone in the industry?
Yeah, anyone in the construction industry, or even broader if you're, finances or, wherever your connection is, would love to meet. And I'm not ruling anybody out. It's, we've got a good base of clients in the area that I'm sure will come anyway, and being contractors and developers, but also a network of accountants and other people that have told me that I'd love to come down and say good day. So, yep, open invite.
Well, take it up. Yeah. It's free.
It is free. So it's a beautiful location, as obviously, and come along. We're sure that the networking opportunity will be fantastic, and from my perspective, the networking is so important, because before you actually advance relationships, you actually got to get to know people and share and find some sort of common ground, and then you can work on other issues. So if there's business opportunities and things like that, but
there is, like, even in this office space that we're in, I met somebody yesterday just in passing, having a coffee, and I'm actually a project director, and they're in construction, and I've got all these projects in northern New South Wales, and we're finding that their client-side project manager, and they're finding that the builder's putting in some ERT claims. I think the construction lawyer, like, there's so much around that you probably don't even realise until you get to talking. So
it's staggering. I can't remember all the stats off the top of my head, but if you actually dig down into, I think there's 1.3 million people employed in the construction industry in Australia, and then when you dig down through the different classifications and trades and everything like that, it's just, I think project managers is one of the biggest ones, about 130 or 140,000 people that identify through ASIC statistics or ABS statistics that they're project managers. But it's such a diverse industry when it's much more than clients, people with money, developers, builders, subcontractors, suppliers. There's just so many subsets of people who have their own specialisation and skills, and that's one of the challenges, I think. It's because it can be a very fragmented industry. So the more that people come together and actually talk, they'll actually find that they've got common concerns or common issues, and then work at possible solutions.
Yeah, completely agree. It's all about communication in the industry, for sure.
Yeah.
You recently delivered some training in collaboration with HJA.
Yeah.
I didn't flag this to you in the pre-notes for the podcast. What were you?
Yeah, the training was good. Training was really good. So I presented along with Earl Tan and Jackie Doyle and Janelle Karras from the Helix team, and HJA was Colin Bond gave a presentation, or it was a case study actually, which was really interesting on the upstream and downstream project that he worked on. My presentation, I gave a bit of the contract fundamentals talk to our team, to the crowd, which is always good to go back to basics. So we were looking specifically at government contracts and going back through the variation clauses and the EOT clauses and some recent cases. And there's always some surprising decisions, even when you think you know what constitutes a variation. There's always a case which people think, oh, okay, that makes me think twice about it before I put in my variation claim. So that was good, and Earl and Jackie gave a really good presentation on the Queensland government, on the Queensland government policy, procurement policies.
Yeah,
ethical procurement policies, that's right. Which I think for a lot of people in the construction industry, it's almost the first time they're hearing about these things, even though they've been around for so long. So I think that the training that Earl and Jackie give is amazing and really valuable. So we're going to keep rolling out that training to the sector. So if there's people that are interested in ethical procurement, I think we're going to touch on some security of payment in the future as well, which is definitely my day-to-day is security of payment and my bread and butter. So get along to those trainings if you see them popping up in your inbox. Highly recommend.
Michael said that we have some video footage, so we might put a couple snippets of you in here.
Jonathan, what sparks your interest to be involved in projects on the coast?
I think a few things. I think the interest for me on the Gold Coast, having grown up here, is this balance between the amazing lifestyle that we have and the growth, and trying to not lose the things that make the Gold Coast great, which has always been the ease of access to the beach and being able to drive to your corner store. And some of those things, the reality is, are going to probably they'll become more difficult, or they might not be there in the future. So we really need to hold tight onto that and preserve that as best we can. And if that's by putting in the light rail, I think that's what the government and the council have decided is the best way to do it. But I'm interested to see how the city shapes up to accommodate for the growth. And it's ever growing ever since it existed. It's always been growing exponentially. But it's a really exciting time, I think, to be an advisor in the area, especially when there's the challenges that exist in the construction industry as a whole outside of the Gold Coast. So you've got the housing issue and the affordability issue on the Gold Coast is really problematic when you've got all these high-end residential developments going up at the same time as people are struggling to find houses. And what the solutions will be for that in the area, I'm interested in, and how we can find ways to house people that can't afford a $2 million penthouse apartment, or even if it's not a penthouse, a high-end apartment on the beach. So, the Gold Coast is up and down this beautiful coastline, so the property prices are always going to be pretty high for what that is. But there's still people that need to be housed that can't afford that, so there needs to be solutions. And probably jumped around a few different areas there, but I think honing in on the social housing and how the Gold Coast can make that work as the population grows is an area of interest to me.
It's basic housing, and looking after your fellow, Gold Coastians and everything like that. And we're recognising that such a diverse range of people here with different financial means, everything like that. But one of the interesting things, I think, in a lot of the sort of high-end touristy spots, and also spots like the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, where people are living longer in aged care and all that sort of stuff, is that if the community doesn't look after people who are looking after older people in aged care, or servicing shops, or giving you your coffee in the morning, so you've got to make sure that you're looking after those people, not just for economic reasons, but just for the right reasons as well. But turning it back to economic reasons, is that the whole economic environment will collapse if everyone is not looked after in terms of basic housing, in terms of what they can afford and what should be provided.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's there's a lot of people that I grew up with that were locals in the area, and particularly Burleigh and Palm Beach area, which can't afford to buy in the house in the areas which they grew up in. So I guess that's just a reality of where we're at now. They're looking for other areas to live. A lot of the Gold Coast population keeps moving south as well. Those southern areas are becoming more and more popular. I think primarily because I've been undervalued for such a long period of time. But you're right, like there's an aging population on the Gold Coast. There's a lot of retirees and people that have moved up here from Melbourne, Sydney, New Zealand, wherever it is, to retire. So they're going to need to be looked after as the years roll on.
What excites you about coming to work?
Yeah, seriously. You're in the disputes team.
What excites me about coming to work? I've spoken about this before with my team. Like, I do have a bit of a competitive edge, so I sort of fallen into disputes because I like to win. And sometimes that doesn't always, things don't always go your way, and you deal with that. But trying to find an answer and to strategically work through really complicated issues is the thing that I love most about my job. And working with really smart people on complicated issues. Like the Helix team is just full of such smart people. But then we also work with really clever barristers and experts. And when you're talking to people with different expertises and they're giving you these solutions that you might not have thought of, and then you can work that answer into a strategy for your client that can put them in the best position to get the outcome they're after. Like, that's what I really love doing in my job.
Finding a solution.
Yeah. Strategizing and seeing that strategy come, how it plays out, and adjusting along the way until you get to the outcome. And there's always some surprises along the way, and the solution you might have started thinking it would be one thing ends up being something else. But working that process through is, I think.
Because not being a lawyer, I just sit back and look at some of this stuff, and I've always thought that lawyers like you, it's like a game of chess, isn't it? You're moving pieces around. You're not quite sure how it's all going to end up, because the other party's got the opportunity to move a piece around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's like, and then if you get to that successful conclusion, well, that's good. But sometimes it can be a long game.
Yeah,
and you've got to play a patient sort of game.
The saying I like for disputes is that being a lawyer is like being a surgeon, but when you're operating on the patient, there's somebody on the other side trying to mess up your operation. It says about, yeah. So it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. We've got like some great commercial clients that, will test our advice, but they'll take it and we'll go along for the ride. And we work so well with the client base that we've got, and we've had some long-term clients that I love working with in the construction industry.
Do you think there are any common misunderstandings, or what do you think that a lawyer, any lawyer or construction lawyer, and a client on the project side need to understand about each other to resolve a dispute or best manage a dispute?
Common misunderstanding.
Like something that they need to know about each other to work together to come to a resolution, so that things don't become.
I think for most claims, it's not, your case is probably not quite as high as what you think it is, and it's probably on the flip side not as bad as what the other side might think it is. Things usually fall somewhere in the middle.
Not as good as what you think it is, and not as bad as what you think it is. It's I'm not sure if that really fits into the category of a common misunderstanding. I think, there's some people in the industry that might be overreaching from time to time, but for the most part, people are trying to work and get paid, and in the contracting side, and developers are just trying to make their projects stack up. So, like we mentioned before, the communication piece in construction is so vital, because if you don't communicate, or you communicate poorly, there are misunderstandings which will no doubt lead into disputes. So, is there something kind of like, I think parties, if parties can have the ability to walk a mile in the shoes of the other party, that's a sort of, to me is a really good starting point to be able to, you then probably got some sort of capacity for a sensible negotiation or conciliation or compromise. So it's always good when you see that sort of stuff, when even if a builder's in sort of a really heavy combative situation with a subcontractor or a principal, if they've got the ability to be able to see the pressures that the others are under.
Oh mate, the margin's so tight for everybody on these projects, so it's everyone's trying to get through and find the best outcome. There's builders that have got subcontractors to pay, and they're feeling the pressures from below, and developers, they have to answer to financiers, and everybody's got someone to answer to, and they're all trying to make it work the best they can. When the project kicks off, there's all in the same way I was talking about the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So the developer would have the same thing that they've modeled through their FISO plan, and the contractor would be thinking they're going to make this much money. So if things start to go off the track, it can become difficult for them. But it's working together to try to find, if it's not going to be what you think it was, then what can be the best result from the situation that's evolved, because like there's all sorts of things, weather or COVID or whatever it is, that can hijack a project, and
There's more grey in the construction industry than there is black and white.
yeah, it's all grey.
From disputes that you're working on at the moment or recently on the coast, do you have any hot lawyer tips for our listeners out there, if there are listeners out there, that they can take away and implement to avoid a dispute, not to take work away from you? If a dispute happens, then Jono's free, but any hot tips?
Yeah, I think construction, particularly security payment, it's specialised and it's evolving all the time. We're on a matter at the moment which was an adjudication, and it's going through the Supreme Court now as a challenge. We've got a hearing next Friday about the adjudicator's decision, and the complexity of the issues that evolve from something which was originally a contractor doing some work and putting in a payment claim, putting in an invoice for this work, to where we've got King's Counsel and these barristers putting in these submissions about the basis for their entitlement, and how an adjudicator can get these things wrong, but which, that's okay. And like without like speed the details of the submissions that have been made, but it is such a complicated, it can become so complicated in the way the security payment legislation is interpreted and whatnot. So I wouldn't want to stray outside of the things that I know as a lawyer. So if you find yourself wondering what's going on, I'm happy to talk to those lawyers about it. But
It's so hard, isn't it? Particularly the security payment regime. Someone who was involved in bringing the regime into Queensland and was the adjudication registrar for, I don't know, whatever number of years. It's the evolution of it in terms of its complexity.
particularly amongst different states.
Yeah.
Like the New South Wales will be going in one way and Queensland's going the other way. It's
so fragmented across the different jurisdictions, which causes obviously problems for contractors working both sides or cross borders and things like that. But it's the best option is always to work for settlements before, not trying to do you out of business, Jono, but
absolutely.
But work for settlements.
Yeah,
and particularly and in the just security payment regime, there's plenty of opportunities to work for settlements between payment claim and payment schedule, and adjudication application and adjudication response. Not every matter has to go to adjudication, and there's plenty of time frames there that can be used essentially by the parties to actually work something out.
Yeah, adjudicators first aren't cheap necessarily either. They're spending, it's obviously depending on the complexity of the claim, but they're spending weeks on adjudication decisions at their hourly rate. So if you're paying an adjudicator $50,000 on top of the result, then there's lots to consider, and there's not to mention your friendly lawyers that are preparing the adjudication and the response. So if you can come to a negotiated resolution before getting too far down the hole, then obviously that's always the best approach. But it can be hard, it can be difficult, and sometimes you need to take the step of applying for adjudication to be taken seriously, or if you're in the respondent's shoes, you might not even really have much of a say in the matter because you get served with an adjudication application and you have to respond quickly. The timeframes are so short that you're instructing lawyers as soon as that the application hits, and you're incurring the cost of having to prepare that response, and the opportunity to settle might go away before it really you have the chance. So if you can resolve it even earlier than that, then great. But everyone's under pressure and everyone's pushing hard to be paid for what they're doing or pay what they think is the fair entitlement for the work that has been performed,
But you love the thrill. I have not been roped into an adjudication yet.
Yeah. Oh, from a lawyer's perspective, it's fine.
Michael wrote an article called "The Economic Pulse of the Industry," and he listed 10 topics that we'll be zeroing in throughout our Surfs Up series.
I hope this is not a test for me to remember what the 10 were.
No, I won't do that. I'm not going to do that to you. But one of the topics that you focused on in this article was market dynamics and economic impact. A lot of what you said in the articles already come up naturally in the conversation. You kind of broke down what you thought that the current trends in the market are on the Gold Coast at the moment, which was the high demand for ACOM, limited supply of accommodation, but that the Gold Coast has strong economic foundations. They all seem to me like very general themes of a lot of cities at the moment, but going back and kind of maybe drilling into what you were speaking about earlier, what specifically is happening on the Gold Coast around you that you're seeing, and how has it changed since you moved here?
Yeah, well, I think probably touching on what I spoke about earlier about the ability to live on the Gold Coast but work in other cities is a big change now. It's not so much commuting anymore. You can live here and actually, have your job elsewhere because it's all remote. So I think that's keeping population here.
Is it easy for other people to get into other cities? There's not great traffic.
As in getting around the Gold Coast itself.
No, if you're commuting out for work, a lot of people commute.
Not fun. Yeah, no, driving from the Gold Coast to Brisbane's a trek that you wouldn't want to do every day, or at least I wouldn't. But what I think, what I'm saying is more so that people don't need to do that commute as much as what they used to. I don't know how many people would do it every day of the week anymore because there's this hybrid working model. So I think that's attracted people that might have thought, I don't want to do this commute. I'm going to move to Brisbane to say, well, I'm only doing it 2 or 3 times a week, so I will live on the Gold Coast. So I think that's keeping population here. I don't know the data from people that moved up from Sydney and Melbourne during COVID and what that looks like now. My anecdotal sort of view on it is probably that's not as significant as what it was during COVID, but I'm sure there's still a big amount of people that are here that have set up and haven't wanted to leave the Gold Coast lifestyle and the weather to go back to other places. But so yes, specifically it's the growing population, which has always been a thing about the Gold Coast, but also I think it's this identification, if you like to call it, of the areas that have previously been ignored by investors. So like Palm Beach in the last 5 years has gone crazy, but even further south, Kura, all of those areas which have been previously undervalued from a construction and development perspective are not a secret anymore. For me, they were never a secret, and for a lot of people, I've always known how beautiful those areas are. But from a development perspective, now you're seeing the cranes go up, and I think that southern area of the Gold Coast is just going to keep booming.
Just going to put pressure on northern New South Wales. Yeah, which is
and then you're dealing with a different council down there, and so.
But it's all going to be one big corridor eventually. It's there might be a border there.
Yeah,
but and you just saw the disruption from the people that were living when the lockdowns were happening in New South Wales, but weren't happening in Queensland. Remember that during the COVID time?
Oh yeah.
I've forgotten how many people were actually impacted by travelling across the border so often in terms of schools and everything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing to me is noticing it is, I think you touched on it, is the infrastructure. The fact that to meet the challenges of a growing population and a diverse economy too, which is much more than just a one-trick pony tourism these days. It's so diverse.
Yeah.
You got to get the people got to be moved around efficiently.
Yeah.
And in ways that they're accepted.
Yeah, I think so. I struggle with it because grew up on the Gold Coast, I do want to hang on to what the Gold Coast was without all of it. So I fully appreciate that. And I live in Palm Beach, and there's a house across the road which has the big trams out of Palmy sign. Like, there's a lot of resistance to it. I fully understand it, but the reality is, like, the Gold Coast is becoming more and more congested, whether you like it or not. There needs to be a solution for 20, 30 years or 5 years down the track, because it's getting harder to move around. And I drive up from Palm Beach to Broadbeach every day, and the light rail, like the roadworks and the lane, the construction to those businesses, I'm sure it's hugely disruptive. So I've got a lot of sympathy for all of those things as it's happening at the time. I hope that once we're on the other side of it, the benefits outweigh it all. But so I'm like foot in both camps, but I understand that it's, I think, where the city needs to go if it's going to mature and eventually have that light rail all the way down to the airport and an east-west connection out to the hard heavy rail. I think that's all something that will inevitably happen.
Do you know when that's supposed to end?
I think so they're doing stage 3 at the moment down to Burleigh, which I think sometime next year that will be finished. And I don't believe that I've got the go-ahead to go any further than that just yet, because there is a resistance to it. But
a lot of this stuff will be solved with once all these pieces get put into place in terms of the Olympic Games. Because I know Brisbane's got the Olympic Games, but there's a heck of a lot of stuff on both the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast and other parts of Queensland, quite frankly. And if the transport doesn't work in that entire corridor from essentially Noosa down to Coolangatta and out to Toowoomba,
if ever there was an opportunity for a speed train from the Gold Coast to Brisbane, the Olympics
would be great.
So that sort of infrastructure has got my vote. I don't know if that will happen.
Do you think there's a lot of tension between, say, people like you have been on the Gold Coast for many years, who want to resist a lot of maybe the construction knocking over those older buildings or houses on the water, to put up a lot of accommodation and new apartment buildings to create housing supply?
Yes, I think what the real issue is with a lot of the buildings is that there's separate owners within a complex, say, so it's not as easy for social affordable housing developers or any developers really to come in and just say, we're going to buy this property and knock it down and put something else there, because you're dealing with so many different maybe different body corporates within that one lot or whatever it is. So I think that's a challenge for increasing density, if that's what the goal is, and it probably is to some extent. That density needs to increase on the Gold Coast because there's still a lot of big blocks in it there. But
there's lots of little tiny houses along that Palm Beach, and then you'll see a massive whopper new building. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
it's not just an issue for the Gold Coast. It's not in my backyard type of. There's a real sentiment issue that has to be. There's a counter movement now. Yes, in my backyard, where people are actually, diving in and owning the fact that there has to be different types of density levels where appropriate, and different types of builds where appropriate. But it's going to be a continuing issue for a long time, and unless the community and I suppose councils have got to take a lead here in terms of liaising with people and communicating with people about proposals and things like that, and making sure the locals have got an opportunity to have a voice. That will go a long way. But if people don't think they've got a voice, well, that's when it becomes a really nasty issue.
As a construction lawyer and a dispute lawyer, so it can be quite a stressful job. How do you choose to unwind after a big day or a big week? What's your method to make sure that you take care of yourself?
I feel like that's a bit of a loaded question, because I don't really unwind when I go home at the moment, because I have 2 young kids that don't necessarily allow that. But come the weekend, I'm spending time with my family down at the beach and making the most of all the wonderful things that I've spoken about the Gold Coast. So we're at Talbudger Creek Saturday, Sunday with the kids, and that helps me de-stress. But otherwise, like as anyone would know, it's important to exercise. So I try to keep up with that when I can, and do a bit of running here and there, and if the surf's good, I'll go out for a surf. And they're my de-stress.
Yeah, you're good at ignoring putting the phone away on weekends and trying to ignore the emails or
it's not so much ignoring emails that come in over the weekend. It's about, for me, if I can use some time on the weekend to make my week a bit easier by doing a few things, I will
break the back of some stuff.
I try to do that. But whether it makes my week any easier is questionable. But no, I'm pretty good. Like I will, make sure I'm spending the time with my kids on the weekend and the family. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to end the Surf's Up episode 1 podcast episode. So thank you for joining us, Jono.
Pleasure. Thank you. Well done, guys.
Thanks, and we're looking forward to the rest of the season. Come and book your ticket to the event.
Yeah, big guests.
27th September.
27th of September across the road. And Emily and I are just finalising our sort of guest list. We've got some good people locked in already that will start circulating some information about who's going to be our other guests. So, but thanks, mate.
Yep.
Thanks, Charlie.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. The information we discussed today was just that, information only. It is not specific advice. If you take action following something you heard today, it is important to make sure you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed, whether that advice be legal, financial, accounting, medical or other advice. Please reach out to the Helix team if you have any questions or if there's another topic you'd like to explore. And if you know someone who might benefit from the show, remember to tell them about it or point them to our Instagram, Facebook or LinkedIn